there is very little of the traditional knowledge being imparted to students in colleges. Most of it is Western knowledge, unfortunately. And if there is traditional knowledge, I find students go to sleep. They assume that it is backward. And this is something we need to address very seriously. It is a huge problem that all Indian traditions is being relegated to a backward state as part of the new colonization that is taking place. And most of you students are probably victims of this kind of brainwashing, and it is time to wake up. Because if every generation doesn't wake up to the power of our traditional wisdom, we're going to lose it. And when we lose it, believe me, what will happen is all this knowledge will be hijacked by the West. Just like everything else has been hijacked. Haldi or whatever you want to call it, it will get hijacked. And they will come and teach you. Nowadays, the certification for yoga teaching is coming from the US. I don't even know whether you people know it. Unless you're certified by the yoga institutes of the US, you cannot practice internationally. It has come to that state. Pretty soon, vAstu, it will happen. So please wake up. It's very, very important that you take your tradition seriously, and it's a tradition that belongs to every Indian, irrespective of your religion. It has nothing to do with religion. Just like yoga had nothing to do with religion, unfortunately it is being made into a Hindu symbol by very, very cynical forces. Don't take it seriously. Please remember, this is your heritage. And we have been colonized and brainwashed to actually not look at our heritage as being meaningful, relevant, substantive, and capable of responding to current reality. Okay? So it's very, very important, very critical that you start looking at this. All right? So I was invited actually to talk about high-rise buildings, which is a very strange topic, which is what I told Shiva Mohan, that it's not a very easy topic for me to talk about without giving you the background. Because vAstu, if I want to apply it to high-rise buildings, you have to understand what is Vastu Shastra. And in Andhra particularly, the vAstu that is being practiced here is only to create fear. And there is one standardized formula that is being used onto, with like a chapa. They put it onto everything and say, if this is not here, you will die. If this is not here, you will lose your wealth, and so on. Some terribly damaging stuff. And I can assure you, it has come to this point only because the schools of architecture have not studied their traditions. They have taken only the European tradition, particularly the Bauhaus system. And the Bauhaus system, those of you who know your European history, was a reaction to the World War. And it was relevant only to Europe. It had nothing to do with India. Even climatically, it is not appropriate. All those flat surfaces without any chhajas is completely useless for our country, for our climate, for our rainfall, for our summers. So it is very, very important that you wake up to the fact that you have been following a phantom, which is not relevant for your culture at all, right? So it's important to go back and find out, why did we do what we did? What was the basis of the kind of settlements that we created? Because this whole thing of slopes that is floating around, saying that all slopes should be towards the northeast and all that, is complete nonsense. The tradition has only spoken about slopes for settlements, never for individual buildings. So you are on the western slope of a mountain and you have a settlement there, then the east will be the lowest point. But individual plots might vary. As you all know, there are micro slopes. No slope is always the same. It's not the same gradient. There will be micro slopes. Just like there is microclimate. Like I live in the Nilgiris. In my valley it will be raining, the next valley it will be sunny. The microclimate in the mountains is so specific. So you have to be aware of all this. And every text of Vastu will start with saying you have to understand your environment. And the only way you can understand your environment is if you go out there and feel it. No schools of architecture are teaching you to feel the soil. They're not teaching you to understand wind and rain. They don't teach you to touch material. Okay? So we are going to first talk about what was the traditional pedagogy. What is known as Parampara Siksha. Okay? So let's start by paying our respects to the ancients. So it says, in sound through music, in the body through dance, in words through poetry, in space through architecture, in form through sculpture, in thought through mathematics, the devotee touches the divine. All the 6 paths for achieving divinity. And believe me, I mean, you can't even believe that they are talking about mathematics as a pathway to the divine. Okay? So, the tradition has valued each one of them as a pathway to divinity. And the divinity is not out there, but it is in here. Right? So, the process of the Paramatma out there in universal space and the Jivatma in here within the human body. So to touch that, to become sensitive to that, the pathway is music, dance, poetry, architecture, sculpture, and mathematics. So, this is a very interesting one. Many people today will wonder what this is all about. The tradition has talked about the qualities that you need to be a good designer. It is not easy for everybody to become a designer. Today, what is it that is being done? Common examination and your cut-off mark. And much of it is something you've just read, downloaded. It has nothing to do with experience, right? But the tradition's focus was always on how do you experience reality? And how do you acquire skills and knowledges based on the way you work with yourself. So simultaneously, there is an outside in and an inside out, which is not available in any university education today. It's a simultaneous process. So you say, Sthapatihi Sthapanarha. Sthapati or the designer is one who establishes. He creates Sthapana karta hai. Then, Syat Sarva Shastra Visharadaha. He is one who knows all the Shastras. So it sounds like a big, tall order. At 16, can you know all this? It is not saying that you come prepared like this. But it says, through the process of your work, through the process of your life, you get there. So this is a pathway or a process, like the previous shloka that I read to you about. Na hina angaha. If you, and this is a very important statement. This is a person who is not without any deformities. Because the Sthapati of the ancient time is not somebody who sat at a drawing board and drew and somebody else built. He actually built, physically built. And they had very few tools, so they carried things, they moved things, moved loads. So you had to be physically very fit, okay? And then little by little, I'll read the English ones because some of the Sanskrit ones you may not understand. He must be dharmic. He must be a person without any jealousy, cannot be acquisitive. And today, can you even identify with this? Every profession, people are going into it to make money. And how much more money can you make than the other person? So this is a basic premise saying the way you practice and the way you make money must be dharmic in nature. And it cannot be acquisitive. Okay, so all this is a preparation of the self, while you're also acquiring skills and knowledge to be able to do whatever you have to do with certain level of excellence. Okay? The next one. So this is a continuation of the qualities, and then it is also talking about the 4 gradations, because we are not talking about an individual here. We are also talking about a team, right? That once again, there is no background for it today in today's life. You don't, frequently the architect doesn't even go to the site. They have assistants going to the site, right? But here, every part of the built environment was under the control of the sthapati. So the sthapati was the main supervisor or the superintendent of the project, and there were the other 3 people who were assistants. And usually these assistants ultimately became sthapati also. So they were younger people, frequently the sons, the grandsons, the nephews, and other interrelated groups. So you had the Sutragrahi, who is generally considered to be the one who marks. And marking is very important. Those of you who see what is happening on the site today, masons don't know how to keep levels. You'll have brickwork going like this, cracking already even before the slab is put on top. So the marking and locating the plumb line is a very critical aspect. Sutragrahi. Then you have the Vardhaki. Yeah, please. Takshaka and the Vardhaki. Okay? These are people who are part of the team of the Sthapati for executing the project. He is the person, the Takshaka is the one who cuts and creates the shapes. Those of you who have gone to temples will also know that there's a lot of carvings, beautiful edges, and when you watch a traditional Shilpi community constructing a brick temple, you will also see that they shape the bricks when they are taking it up. The curvature in the corners, the cuts in the corners already done on the ground before it is placed. This is the job of the Takshaka. And the Vardhaki is the one who joins. The mortar, or as in the Brihadeshwara temple, there is no mortar. The pieces are standing through self-weight. Okay? So the ability to have perfect shapes, perfect levels, perfect corners, and stacking with self-weight is very critical. So all 4 of them worked together. Then you also had the 5 communities within the Vishwakarma. And this is based on the material they worked with. Metal and stone and wood and jewelry and so on. So all the practical, aesthetic, material needs of a society were met by these 5 people. Manu is the blacksmith. Maya is the carpenter. Twashta is the metal vessel maker. Shilpi is the sculptor and the temple designer. Vishwagnya is the jeweler. So I always start my lectures paying homage to the stalwarts of the tradition. This is Ganapati Sthapati's father, Sri Vaidyanatha Sthapati. Those of you who have been to Chennai, he designed and built the Gandhi Mandapa. Built means physically, he was there lifting the weights. Alright? He was a Sanskrit scholar, astrologer, and he was one of the first craftspeople to receive the national award, 1960. Okay. This is Amritalingam Sthapati. He is also one of the ancients. He is from the Kovai district, which means Coimbatore, Pollachi, those areas. He was also a Sanskrit scholar, astrologer. He built many buildings in Kongunadu. Kongunadu is that area of Coimbatore. And this is a specific sculptural monument that he has created of a single stone with multiple pillars and the famous stone chain which is carved out, the pieces are interlocking and it's carved out of a single stone. This can actually be seen in some of the ancient temples, particularly the temple in Tirunelveli, Nelayappa temple. It's a very common aspect. Some other temples in Vellore also have the stone chain and the hanging pieces on the ceiling, all carved out of a single stone. So we are talking about skill, understanding of the material, load movement, everything was done by these people. The maximum they used was a bullock cart. So it's amazing capacity to understand movement of weights, which means you need to understand the fulcrum, you need to understand where to put your the metal rod so that it can move. And Ganapati Sthapati has told me so many stories of people who used to move loads in their families, who would actually, I believe, when the column had been placed and then they were going to put the beam on top, supposing it's a stone beam, I believe this man would be running on the stone beam until it is placed, so that he is holding the balance of the beam. So there is an enormous understanding of the nature of materials. And this is something we definitely need to bring back to the schools of architecture. Not just sitting with the computer, not just sitting and making drawings. You have to understand the nature of materials. The famous vAstu Purusha mandala. Once again, much misunderstood. A lot of people will tell you, oh no, his head is in the northeast, you can't do this in the northeast. Actually, the vAstu Purusha has two aspects. One is known as the Sthira vAstu, the other is the Chara vAstu. Sthira vAstu is that energies towards the northeast are actually more intellectual, more thought energies. And towards the southwest, the feet. That is the Pitru. That is where the energies of your past are coming from. So each of them is a symbolic representation. It is not as if there is a man sleeping on the ground and you put this, terrible things will happen to you. It's not like that. It is a symbolic representation. And Chara vAstu is the movement of energies based on the seasons. Starting with Uttarayana and all the way Dakshinayana, or starting with the Pongal festival that we have in January, all the way back to December, January. You can take any which way you want. The astrological symbols, the corners are the mutables, the centers are the cardinals and the fixed. So you have the whole movement of the energies in the land taking place based on the local climate. And in India, they are more or less the same. So one of the important things for you to remember, why do you start your work during the month of January? Or the second season is in July. Why is this being done? Very clearly based on your monsoons. Apart from the fact that these are considered to be auspicious times, the equinox, the movement of the sun, they're also based on your monsoons. Those of you who have practiced, you will know that if you dig the earth in the middle of the year, just after a monsoon, the water table would have come right to the top. You cannot do your foundations. Okay? So July was a good season for that part of India which has northeast monsoons. January for all parts of the country where there is southwest monsoon. Okay, so this is, you have to understand Vastu Shastra is a mixture of metaphysics and practical reality of the world outside. There's a subject called cosmology. Cosmology means directions. Directions have certain meanings, directions have certain identifying patterns and symbology. Okay. So you have the standard meanings. Northeast is Ishana, east is Surya, southeast is Agni, south is Yama, then it's Pitru, then it is Varuna, then it is Vayu, and then you come back to Kubera. This is the classic movements. What does it mean? It means that each of these have certain meanings, certain values. Okay? So, Surya, for example, direction of Surya or the east is where the rising sun is happening. So, the morning sun is very, very auspicious, it's very healthy, it gives you a lot of energies that are good for you, and therefore waking up early in the morning, waking up in Brahma Muhurta or Ushaskala or whatever is very good for your general wellness. Therefore, receiving the sun rays of the morning sun, having a lot of windows, having a lot of openings where this air comes into the home is obviously very good for you. So at a practical design area, east is an excellent direction. But it also is symbolized by the flag. It's called Dhwaja Vastu, or Dhwaja Yoni. Yoni is a direction, okay? Dhwaja Yoni means it's a flag. Flag means victory, celebration, okay? So this is a great direction for intellectual activity, for knowledge seeking, for looking for success. Then you come to the southeast. Southeast is Agni or fire. As we all know, Agni or fire is known as the powerful thing which not only food, it is also the direction of spiritual growth. In Ayurvedic centers, this is the direction where they do all the preparations of their medicines. Southeast is considered to be very auspicious for anything that requires change of form, creating compounds, shifting of energy from one level to the other. And those of you who are aware, Agni is also considered to be the messenger of the gods, which is why you make all offerings to Agni. When you're doing a homa, when you're carrying out a ritual, all offering is given to Agni, because he is considered to be the only one capable of moving energy from one state to another. Which is true. You heat water, it becomes steam. You remove heat and the water will probably become ice. So this movement of matter from one stage to another, it is considered to be the work of Agni. So this is the direction which is normally recommended for cooking, but not necessarily the only direction for cooking. It is a acceptable direction for cooking if your entry direction is not south or east, which is what I was explaining to Shiva this morning. If your road is on the south or in the east, traditional settlements, the kitchen will not be in the southeast, it will be in the northwest. And there's a very simple reason for it, because now you're moving into use. It was used by the women of the home. Front of the home cannot be the women's wing, because there's a lot of drying, cleaning, gossiping, preparation, everything that was happening in the kitchen. Usually it was in the rear of the house. Okay, so the women of the settlement will gather together during the season just after agricultural, when the harvest is ready, and they would go from home to home preparing for the year. And this will happen in the rear of the house, not in the front of the house. Okay? So each of them has a meaning and also a use. Right? Yama, this is the most misunderstood of all of them, cosmology. Yama, immediately people say death. So, particularly in Andhra, lot of anxiety about having openings, entrance in the south, that you will die. Educated people having this fear. If it is so easy for you to die, we could have given south-facing entrances for all our enemies, no? Killed them off at one shot. You can't die before your time. You will die only when your time is there, is right. You try very hard. You can't die, right? What Yama means is you die to your physical reality and you move into your spiritual seeking. So it's a rebirth to your spiritual self. And Yama is also considered to be Dharma Raja. Yama Dharma Raja he is called. Which means this is the direction of a dharmic location. So in fact they recommended this for anybody who is a spiritual seeker. Ashramas, places, universities and places of education were considered to be very auspicious to have a southern entry. But it usually, the location of the door is not in the middle, but it's usually shifted to the right side. Okay? Right side when you're looking from the outside, left side when you're looking from the inside. Then you come to Pitru. Pitru is your ancestors. So there are two schools. One school which says Pitru is space. Another school which says it's earth. I follow the system which says it's space, that is from my mother. And as we all know, our Pitrus are supposed to be in the Antariksha. They are space, but not in the Devaloka. They are in the middle space, Antariksha. Okay? So there is a strong relationship between your ancestors and the way you live your life. So this will be the direction from which the power of your forefathers will come to you. Varuna on the west. Again, very misunderstood. Lot of people will tell you that you should never have anything on the west because it's the night. The description is that this side of the Vastu Purusha Mandala is the light and this side is the darkness or the night. But the night is where the mystic capabilities are awakened. So Varuna he's actually one of the ancient Vedic devatas. Varuna is the lord of the water. And the water, particularly the ocean water, which means that which is unknown, that which is very potent, which is capable of evoking mystic capabilities. Okay? Then Vayu, northwest, who is the lord of air or wind. And this is supposed to be a very good direction for intellectual movement, for any kind of, and Prana Vayu, when you look at it, health also is defined by Vayu. So, this is a direction for any kind of work with creativity, intellectual achievement, etc. Kubera, of course, everybody understands him as only the lord of wealth, but he is also the lord of herbs. He is considered to be the one who is in charge of Aushadha, which means health as well as wealth. And wealth here, we are not talking Dabu here. Wealth is prosperity. So health is also part of prosperity. Okay? So north is considered to be the direction from which for prosperity is achieved. And the center is Brahmasthana or Brahmapada, which is where Brahma is supposed to have seated himself to control the powers of the earth. Ultimately, this is all of the devatas, 45 of them, sat on the earth in a given vastu, which means any land that is defined, which has a boundary. In that, there are 45 of these devatas with their specific powers and capabilities have resided. So, when you place something there, the capabilities of those devatas will be available for you. Then you also have concentric spaces that are created in the land, starting with the central point, which is known as Brahma Bindu or Brahma Sthana, location of Brahma. And then the space around it is known as Brahma Padam or Pada, which means a space which is potent with the powers of Brahma, who is the creator, and it's formless. And then around it you have the various concentric spaces, Brahma, and then Devika Pada, Devika Padam or Devika Pada, which is considered to be also very energetic because it belongs to the Devatas. And then the Manusha Pada, it's the Pada of the human being. And then lastly, Paishacha Pada. Paishacha, don't immediately get into the negative interpretation of Pishach. It is not that. Paishacha means that which is closest to the human beings. So the energies, environmental devatas, the power of plants and trees and all the nature gods that you still have in India, that you see in the village folk deities, all that comes in the outer periphery. So each of them has a meaning. Center is usually left open in the courtyard. In a settlement, it is usually a maidan or a water body. Around it is the Daivika Pada. You usually have low use buildings, which means your administrative offices, the palace of the king, and some of the courtiers, and lot of garden spaces. Then in the Manusha Pada, which could be 2 or 3 modules, that will be where the housing is, and that will be zoned, housing zone for each kind of activity. And invariably the activities which will push out the most effluent is kept in the southern area. That's where the effluent treatment was done in all settlements. And then the final one, which is called the Paisacha Pada, is where the marketplace is. This is where heavy gathering, so maximum crowds is considered to be in the outer periphery. And this is a very clever design idea. Those of you who are urban designers, half the problem in cities today is because of the crowds and the congregation and the pollution in the center of cities. If all of them had the heavy movement of traffic and the crowds in the outer, the center will actually remain the lung of the settlement. It will be unpolluted, it will be clean, it will be a better settlement. Okay? So this, there are variations of this Padavinyasa, where you have 9 such divisions. So they've been given different names: Brahma, Ganesha, Agni, Jala, Naga, Yama, Kubera, Deva and Pisacha. So all these are when it's a complex settlement and you want to work with more number of concentric spaces, you subdivided it into multiple, and then you can use 2 for the open spaces, 3 for the administrative offices, 4 for the housing, and 2 again for the market spaces. It depends. You can work with this in many patterns. All right. So having said all this, let us now move into apartment buildings. But let me give you a little background on this. Today, apartment buildings have become the norm everywhere in the world. So what's happening? Because we are told that there is a space crunch, you're moving upward. And the space crunch is happening in urban settlements. There is space outside, but everybody wants to come into cities. And therefore, you are creating appropriate dwelling units, which are almost like beehives at one level. Self-contained apartments. You're giving them 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, whatever. You're separating them as lower class, middle class, upper class, and the really wealthy habitats. So you are pushing them upwards and giving them more and more amenities to make up for the fact that they are not in touch with the earth. The reality is you are no longer in touch with the earth. You have moved away from earth energies. You don't work with your hands. Almost all the time you are occupying spaces which are not real. You're moving into all theoretical spaces, computer spaces. You're going into things which are not real anymore. You're working with patterns. You're working with things that you cannot touch, you cannot hold, you cannot experience. Okay? So, and then you're moving away from the earth. So what is happening to the mind? A lot of work is being done on this, in different parts of the world. People who occupy 10th floor apartments, 12th floor apartments, who don't see any greenery, who have no access to a garden. What happens to the children? What happens to the mind of these people? So today, not only must you be aware, how do I look at vAstu patterns, you also need to look at natural patterns. What are the energies? What is the movement of light and sound and wind and rain? How is my awareness of plants growing? I have a little balcony. I keep 4 pots and I water them and I watch them grow. That seems to be how it gets replaced. And you're eating all canned food. You're ordering through Swiggy. Food you don't even know where it is coming from, who is making it, what are the ingredients that go into composing this particular meal. And you're working with data or systems that cannot be even seen. You're in some computer space, right? So the whole shift has taken place very rapidly in one generation. Like my mother-in-law, who's 90 years old, has to use the telephone. She has to use WhatsApp to be able to keep in touch with her family. She's forced. What is it doing to her mind? What is it doing to children who, at the age of my grandson who's 7, he is being taught coding in school. So he comes and tells his mother, Amma, you don't know coding. It's so simple. And he's 7 years old. So there is a rapid shift that is taking place. So you are now saying, can this apartment now be habitable with the rules of vAstu? And what are the rules of vAstu? There's a formula, no? Put the kitchen in the southeast, have a water body in the northeast. This has become the standard stuff. And somebody will come into your home and say, poor thing, yeah, this is here. Oh no, you're going to have so much financial difficulty. And even if it is not happening, just thinking about it, worrying about it, getting scared about it, you'll end up creating financial difficulty. Right? vAstu is not about creating fear. It's not about telling you that there's a perfect, pakka, accepted, given blessings from the texts, a vAstu solution. It is not about that. It is about being in relationship with natural energies. That is the basis of Vastu Shastra. So if the wind direction in your city is from a particular direction, then you'll have to have your bedrooms and your windows in that direction. You don't put it all in the southwest. Just because the texts have told you master bedroom is only in the southwest, because that's Pitrasthana. And that's probably the hottest part of the house. The most air conditioning is used there. It's absurd. That's not what the texts are saying. They are saying that Pitrasthana is appropriate to be in touch with your ancestors. They did not have bedrooms. Till 150 years ago, there was no master bedroom. This is a con game that is being pushed onto you. There were no attached toilets. In fact, there were no toilets within the home. You walked to the backyard. There was a bathroom, but not a toilet. How many of you have gone to village homes where you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, right? So, telling you that having a toilet in this location is bad for you, that you must have the master bedroom in the southwest, is all new-fangled stuff. It is not coming from your tradition at all. So, it's an interpretation. Just because interpretation is, there is power of your ancestors. In the southwest, if you use that, the yajaman of the home uses that, they can gain the power of the ancestors. It's an interpretation. Many parts of Tamil Nadu, where they are ancestral worshippers, they don't have any of the classical devatas. They will have a grandfather or a great-grandfather as the devata there, or a great-grandmother. They have their puja in the southwest. That's part of the tradition. So you have to be aware of all these practices before you say, this is the right thing to do. If you do anything else, you will die. You can't say it. It has something to do with the local practices, local condition, the local climate and thermal currents, and the local slopes. So telling anybody, if you have a southwest going down, terrible things will happen to you, so raise it. So I know a lot of clients who have raised the southwest of their property artificially by filling it up because they were frightened by some consultant. And what will happen? You're messing up with your water table. Because traditionally, what the texts have said is, whatever is your natural slope, if you use it appropriately, rainwater catchment and the well can be in a particular location, which is where the rain will come and it will add to your water table. Okay? So you have moved away from all this because the individual has moved away from nature, right? And because you've moved away from nature, somebody comes and tells you this, you buy into it. You don't have a feeling for your land. You don't understand the energies that are already there. So you do damaging things to the energies in that space. And not only do you do it once, you do it multiple times. Somebody else comes and you break this and you build something there. Then a third person comes, you break this and you do. And then the house is a mess. This is not very different from the famous story of Sri Devi and her multiple facial surgeries. At the end of it, you have messed up your system. The home is actually an energetic body. The building is an energetic body. So learn to value it and to make the best of it. Okay? So let's now move into one of the samples. This is an interesting sample of a typical suburban house. Alright? And as you can see, I always mark the Brahmasthana. Brahmasthana and what is happening there gives you a very clear understanding of how the energies will move. Okay? And these houses, the energies will not move because the Brahmasthana is blocked. There will be a lot of stagnant energies. The Brahmasthana is falling if you take them as two different Brahmasthana, one with the extension, the one without the extension, it falls on a wall. Right? You draw the diagonals and you place it, it falls on a wall. So automatically, the energy of that home is going to get blocked. And when energies are blocked, there will be consequential health issues. It's very simple. There is no movement. Okay? So you have to now assist them into creating movement in that home. How do you assist them? One is to protect that space, which is what our tradition has advised us, which is why we do the Ganapati Homam and the Navagraha Homam and all that. You and I don't have either the capacity or the power to work with unseen energies. So what do? We call upon the divinities to assist us to change the energies. So you can have protectors or guardians to help you to re-energize that space. The second thing is, I can't come and tell you how to live your life. I don't have either the right or the capacity. What I will come and do is I will mentor you, help you to take charge of your space so that you can create wellness and health there. This is what I call Chikitsa vAstu. Chikitsa, the word means therapy or healing, right? So you are living in this home, you are experiencing some health problems, some financial difficulties, etc. Some of it is because of market reality. Things are happening very badly. The COVID time, nobody can blame the vAstu of their home. Everybody suffered, right? So there is a market reality. Then there is also your own destiny based on your horoscope. You have your ups and you have your downs. Everybody goes through ups and then their downs. So how are you going to deal with these ups and downs in a way that will bring benefits and wellness to you? How do you handle the down times so that you are at peace without getting panicky, without getting frightened, without running from pillar to post saying, help me. So for all this, I assist them to do what I call yantra, mantra and tantra. Certain practices that they take on to bring about quiet and peace within themselves. So let's just look at 2 or 3 of these, and those of you who want to ask questions after that. So here also, if you look at it, the center falls either in a cupboard or it falls in the wall of the kitchen. So this also is a very similar problem. There may be health issues, and in fact these clients had health issues. That's why they came to me. Next one. Yeah. This is a very interesting one. These are row houses in Bangalore. So row houses, as you know, and it's a duplex. Row houses, as you know, 2 sides are completely blocked. There are no windows or doors on 2 sides. And only 2 ends will have openings. So this is a east-facing house. So east and west is open, north and south is blocked, right? And the center falls in the space, which means there's no serious health issues. But there is a toilet in the northeast. Northeast toilets, not that it is wrong or bad, because toilet actually means something is taken away, right? The effluent moves out. There is nothing coming in, but a lot of it is going out. So there is a possibility that they will have cost overruns. Their income to their expenditure might not be a good ratio. They may have problems with money moving out of the home. Otherwise, actually there's no problem in this home. But since the north is blocked, wealth and the income coming in, both the northeast toilet and the north being blocked, may result in some cash flow issues. And I'm saying may very carefully. I will not say it will. There is a possibility. Because the form is giving you that kind of energies. But this may be overcome by the power and the destiny of the individuals living there. Right? In Tamil we have the statement, Vidiyai Madiyal Vella Mudiyam. Your destiny can be won over by the power of your intellect. So there is a possibility that through certain practices and through certain opening of their mind, this family will be able to stop this monetary issues. This is another classic incident of high-rise buildings. You have 4 apartments, mirror images, right? So which means your toilets are in 4 different locations, your kitchens are in 4 different locations, right? So how do you deal with somebody who comes to you with this? This was a client who came to me and said, I can buy any one of these apartments. Which one would you recommend? So I have to study each one of them, looking at energy patterns, and if you look at the central thing, it more or less falls in the pathway, in the passage. So there is no Brahmasthana effect here. We have to now look at position of kitchen, position of toilets, location of beds, and so on. So here, in such an instance, I will take each one of them and I will work out the possibilities and which are the positive elements, which are the possibly negative elements. Give that list to the client and then they make a choice. And in the tradition they have said, you can sleep with your head in any direction except the north, because the north is seen as in the magnetic field, the northern position of the magnetic field is identified with the head. So therefore, once again, there is a possibility that your sleep patterns will be disturbed. You could have bad dreams, you could have certain problems if you put your head on the north. So for this I will check all that. Whether any of the bedrooms have a north head. Actually none of them do. Most of them are east-west. So that's not an issue. Then I will locate where are the toilets. Like this one, the one which is on the northeastern part. That's the one my client wanted to buy. So I looked at that, and if you look at it, the toilets are there in the southwest of that apartment. And the southwest, as I told you, is the Pitrasthana. So there is a possibility that in this home, their relationship with their families, which means parental families, may be a little disturbed and strained. Right? So I had a chat with them and they said it was already bad. So I said, don't take this flight. But if they have an excellent relationship, then I don't think we need to worry about it. We can create a protector on the outside of the toilets, the guardians on the outside of the southwestern toilet, and you will be fine. So you need to talk to your client. You need to find out their history. You need to assist them in putting aside their anxieties and fear. Ultimately, it's our job to teach them to be happy, not to make them scared and so dependent on us. I think that is the wrong way to look at it. As architects, as designers, as Chikitsa Vastu people, it is our job to assist them to be happy. Alright? So if they are going through a bad time, karmically a bad time in their life, how can I assist them to get to a better place? So I look at their diet. I check out what are their exercise patterns. I find out what is their relationship with the world outside. I had a client once who said not only were their relationships with their families bad, the neighbors, they had bad relationships. They were getting into fights with all the apartment members. So then, there is something you need to look at. How are you going to assist these people to become peaceful enough, calm enough, happy enough to be able to take on another way of relating to the world. Okay? So I end up actually becoming their mentor. And sometimes the relationship goes on for months. Some of my clients call me months later, right? Telling me, okay, I went through this and I'm feeling better. Can you tell me what is the next step? So you're actually assisting them to become empowered rather than disempowered by giving them fearsome sort of results. Maybe we can ask questions if you're interested.